In this tutorial, I'm going to go over the more advanced features with the Tradecraft checklist system. This would be an easy, simple checklist you can use Checkmate for. Let's run it. Did I sleep well? Yes. Did I meditate? No. End of path. Now, alternately, I could take it a step further by adding daily tags such as these meditation tags. If we go to the edit, we can see it is now on a day type, not trade. So these have been adjusted as Tradecraft defaults trade. Going back into the checklist, we can add these. Yes, meditation. No meditation. So let's run the checklist. Did I sleep well? Yes. Did I meditate? Yes. You can see the tag went here, and it's going to go on top of every trade as it is a daily tag, which can be seen in the daily report card section. I've created another checklist, are we in a range? Now, if we run this checklist like so, are we in a range, we can see it hits the end of the path. There's an issue with that. Ranges are going to show up multiple times in a session, so ideally I would want that to loop. What I'm going to show you is how to loop this checklist. So if we go like this, are we in a range? Yes. Theoretically, it should loop. Let's run the checklist. Notice it is not showing up. Tradecraft is not broken. There is an extra step you must do in order to fix this issue. Since this has now created an infinite loop, Checkmate does not know where to start. So on your question node, you're going to click on it and click Global Starting Node. Notice there is a green globe up here. When you create a global starting node, this icon will show up. As we press play, we can see it is now here. And if I keep hitting yes, it'll just keep counting. You can see it's counted 12 times. And it will just continue to go up. However, if I hit this no, it ends path and we do not reloop. In order to fix that, all we simply do is just loop the no. Seeing how the no node didn't have an arrow coming out of it, pointing to nowhere. Just like this checklist, this would be a checklist you would probably do once during the session, pre-market. That's okay if this checklist reaches the end of a path. However, when you're building a trading system and you're attempting to conduct a checklist where multiple things might be showing up on a setup, such as a range, looping it can be very helpful. I'm going to delete this checklist, and we're going to show you several other ways to potentially loop this. So we'll copy it and paste it like so. Now there's something called a pass-through node, which is up here. Let's click on it, and this will be an alternate way to loop the checklist. So we'll delete this, and we'll highlight these two boxes, which will bring a arrow out of both of them, anchoring it to here. Now we can loop it like so. So this will kind of clean up our checklist to where we have multiple arrows going into one pass-through. So instead of two arrows coming out, we only have one. We can press play, and we can see that both of these checklists are virtually the same thing. Their construction is different, however. Now, this will pose a problem. As you can see, this arrow goes behind a node. Over time, as your checklists get more bigger and elaborate, you're going to want to try to keep things neat and clean, and you don't want these arrows going behind other nodes. So adding a few more pass-through nodes can really help substantially here. So we'll add a pass-through up there, as well as one here, and then we'll go like so. And that's a little misaligned, so we'll just align it like that. This cleans things up to where the arrows are no longer going behind a node here. And then as you can see, it just performs exactly the same function. Next, let's talk about narration and the EV counter. I've mentioned this in the previous tutorial. However, you'll notice that it's counting, and it's up to 32 right here. If we reset the counter, start the checklist over again, you can see it is going back to 1 right here, and then it starts counting over. The same thing will happen with this checklist as well. If you hit the reset EV counter, it'll do both checklists. Now it's only resetting the counters. There's an additional feature going on right here that we did not go over in the last tutorial called toggle limited answer summaries. When I hit this, you can see that the sequence of how I hit the yes and no has come in. So if I hit the no here 3 times, you will see the sequence of that come in 3 times, and then it's counted up to 3 times. When you clear the EV counter, it will not clear the actual sequence of clicks that have come through. We'll click this yes, and then this yes again twice so you can see it again. and then we'll clear it. If you would like to collapse, you can click here and it'll recollapse it. Now I'm going to start the checklist over. These two checklists are essentially the same. If we click no here and then yes, you can see it goes no, yes. If we click yes here, no here, it goes yes, no. Now I'm going to click a bunch of random sequences on both of the checklists. As you can see, it's counting them. And then let's expand the answer summaries. Whatever order you're clicking the answers, it'll display that in that very sequence as established. When you collapse your summaries so it doesn't show the unlimited view, the first time you hit any answer will show the order of how it's being displayed up here. So since yes was the first one hit here, it comes up first here. Same with the no on this checklist to the left. Since the unlimited summaries is collapsed currently, no new answers will be displayed up here. Only when you uncollapse or expand the limited summaries view. This allows us to checklist setups or specific things leading into trade setups like VWAPs, how many times that may be tested. We can track ranges. We can see how many times the top or the bottom of a range is being tested through the EV counter, as well as the sequence of how things are playing out on our checklist. So in theory, this actually helps us build a narrative. The better your narrative, the better the story, oftentimes you have better trades. So seeing how many times something is being tested and seeing the sequence of your setups and the components going into the setup being checked allows us to gain more clarity on what is going on in our trading. And I can tell you, the more clear you are on your trades, the better the trades. Now, if you notice it says no 9 down here, if we press back and then we click it again, it goes to no 9 as well. So the number or the counter will go back as well. We'll press no again. We can adjust this by coming into the edit icon up here, and I can click on the no, and then we can put this up to 55. Do not hit this play button as it will reset the checklist. Just hit the X here, and we can see that the no has gone up to 55. Keep in mind the range is on the right here. Same with this one, we'll take it up to 55 because these two checklists are being displayed in a different order. They're actually being displayed like this. The last tutorial I showed you how to adjust the order of display. So this is also at 55 as well. You can see 55 and 55. If you don't want the counters, you can hit this hide counter summary here. We'll do it on both of these no's. And then you can see they've gone away. The yeses are still being counted, whereas the no's technically are not. Now, as I continue to run through this sequence, you can see it gets incredibly lengthy. This is why collapsing it is important, as this will save screen real estate. However, having access to this information can be very useful at times. Now, if you notice when I hit the hide counter summary, there's this 1, 2, 3 and a slash comes in. This is the icon to let us know that the counters are now currently off. We'll reset the checklist and run through them. And you can see that there is no counter. Some of you may not want that. The next thing we're going to go over is not having any question nodes at all. You can actually just link answers together. For example, over here, we'll delete this. I'll come up here and make an answer node, and I'm going to make it say exactly the same thing. Are we in a range? Now, what I want to do is I want to also make this a global starting node like so. Clicking up there, and then we'll just reloop it, and we need to make sure we're connecting here so we get a full pathway that loops. Again, remember, this is a question node with the solid outline, and answer nodes have dotted. Let's play it. You can see that they look extremely different. This says, are we in a range? And then I can directly answer yes or no. So let's click yes on here. And then we're going to come in and click on the are we in a range right here. And then notice how it prompts me to answer yes. We can see that they are completely different. This is asking me if we are in a range again, and I can click yes. This is asking me, are we in a range? I have to physically click on that. You can see it goes to 2 and then yes. So here's what you need to understand. They are the same checklist. They look the same, right? A question node will always ask you a question, or it'll have something up here that is not going to be logged. So keep that in mind. Question nodes are never logged. Answer nodes are always logged in the summary. So are we in a range? Yes. And then this, are we in a range? I have to actually answer this. And it says, are we in a range? And then I can click yes. So what I find useful about this is, let's say we have a big complex tree. Let's say these nodes go further and further down and we got a big trading system and we linked a bunch of stuff together, right? Well, a simple yes isn't really good context. It's not telling me anything. Yes, what? Now we could come in here and go, yes, in a range. We could do that, right? Or no, not in a range. We could do that. That would help. So if we press play, reset the EV counters. Are we in a range? Yes, in a range, not in a range. Now it says yes in a range. That's very helpful, okay? Remember, this question's not getting logged. Whereas this answer, are we in a range, it's physically being logged, and I can say yes or no. So it says in the summary, are we in a range? No. Where this is not asking the question. Now, I know it's asking the question again here because it's a loop. Let's remove the loops so you can see what this looks like. We'll start it, reset the EV counter. Are we in a range? Yes, in a range. And then it just simply says end of path. Are we in a range? Yes. So you can see it's actually physically logging that. Now, remember, this originally said yes or no. So this is where you really want to think about how you're doing this. So let's reset it and run it again. Let's say it originally says yes or no. Are we in a range? You can see the question is right here. That is the question node. Yes. Well, now it just says yes, end of path. And it goes back to what I was originally saying. Yes, what? Whereas when we start off with an answer, are we in a range? No. Well, I can see that I am answering this question right here. So you're not required to actually use a question node. And as we can see, we can string answers together. What about just doing questions? Well, you can also do that as well. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to add some questions. Now we'll put no here and yes here. Now what I want to do is make them all look exactly the same. A question answer, which this is the normal way of doing it. Answer answers or question question. What happens if we do this? Let's go ahead and just put global starting node on there. Even though it doesn't matter, I want them to all look identical for you guys. Here we can see the are we in a range question. However, you might notice there's a continue box. When we come back into the edit, the reason there is a continue is because you have a question being followed up with another question. If the continue box was not there, the flow of the question nodes would just automatically pass through and go to end of path. The continue button is almost like having an answer after a question. So when we press play, we can see we have to select an answer either way, even though technically there is not an answer here. Are we in a range? And then we can see it splits off into a yes and a no, and then it goes to end of path. There is nothing coming out of these nodes right here to continue, nor is there any answers. So therefore, they are already hitting the end of the path. Now, in my personal opinion, you're more likely going to be using the question answer format or the answer answer format. This format doesn't really make sense. However, there might be some use case scenarios where you're going to do this, or you might make a mistake and just put two questions together. So we've made it to where it can work. Now, if we look at all three of these, just to run them down, this is your traditional question answer. So you can see the question is up here, which is not being logged. Are we in a range? And then we can hit yes. We can see the answer. The answer nodes does not have any questions like this one does. Instead, the answer is the question. That is being logged. And then we can press yes. Whereas with the question, are we in a range? Continue, yes. However, none of this is being logged since it's just pure questions. Now we can loop these to see what happens. I'll zoom in and continue to build the loop. Press play. Are we in a range? And then you can see it just continues to cycle as we loop it. The answer, will also continue to cycle as well. With the question, since there are 2 questions, it'll split off and then it'll continue and then they remerge like so. The back arrow will not work on the second question due to a new instance being made, but you can see nothing is being logged here. This concludes this tutorial. This should be enough information to really get you started with the checklist and to be able to extract a lot of value from it. However, for those of you who are looking for more, there are a lot more complex things you can do with the checklist. In the next tutorial, we're going to go over the more complex features such as prevent merging as well as the rest of the options in here. And when you click on the arrow here, there are some other options such as required and excluded and minimum loops to activate. While a lot of these options are not necessary, if you are attempting to build a trading system that is becoming complex, these features will help you be able to achieve that. I encourage you to check out the next tutorial because there may be a feature in there that you will want to utilize.